The Ole Miss Rebels have kind of established themselves as one of the top programs in the SEC when you look at their records the last few years. What's this projection going to look like in 2025? Well, let's first look back at some of those projections from the past 4 seasons, and you can see in 2021 projection was 8-4. They went 10-2. They beat it by 2 games. In 2022 projection, again with our formula, 8-4. They went 8-4. 2023 they really surprised, or at least they did a lot better than the projection. Projection had them at 7-5. They went 10-2. And then last season the projection was 9-3. They went 9-3. So 2 out of the last 4 years, this projection has been exactly right. The other 2 years, they were better than the projection. And again, reminder, this is not a prediction. I don't do predictions until after Memorial Day. We don't even know what these final rosters are going to look like. It's just a projection based off of the opponents they play, and then how tough the schedule is and how good those opponents are expected to be. Simple as that. So here's the schedule again, and this is the scale that we use. And so Ole Miss is a Tier 2 team. In our tier rankings, which is what this is all based off of, they're a Tier 2 team. That means if they play another Tier 2 team, it's going to be a 50-50 game. If they play a team that's below them in Tier 3, it's going to be a 61-70% game. But if that's on the road, it drops to a 50-50 game in that 40-60 range. So that's kind of the way it works. And I do like to say that you can look at this with the point spread. If it's in the 50-50 range, the point spread probably going to be 3, 4, 5 points. If it's in the purple, probably about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points, 71-80. And then you're talking about double-digit spreads, and then over 80, probably like a 20-plus point spread. But that's not what this is based off of. We're not trying to guess spreads. That's just one way to look at it, and I like to mention that. So you start with those easy wins. I'm going to actually give them 5. And I know you look at Tulane, you look at Washington State, you look at Mississippi State. Again, with our tier system and the way we do this, those do come out in the green. If I'm just looking at those games, I would probably put them, I don't know. They would be, to me, they're like borderline, whether they should be in the blue or the green. So yeah, counting those as wins, I don't know if I would do that, especially Egg Bowl on the road. And then Tulane's a pretty good group of 5 team, but I don't know how good Tulane and Washington State are really going to be. Again, with our formula, these games all do come out in the green, which means when we do the calculation at the end, these will all be counted as wins. So 5 wins for Ole Miss that you can pretty much count on. But I circle back to that Egg Bowl on the road. I don't know if I'd count that a guaranteed win just because of the rivalry, but based off of where Mississippi State fell in our tier rankings, again, that is why that is in the green. So keep that in mind. 5 games that they should win, and then you got a couple of games where they should probably win. I mean, they're going to be probably double-digit favorites in these games. I know they lost to Kentucky last year, and it is on the road. So again, there's no human element to this. If I'm assigning predictions here, honestly, I probably put that game in the purple, and I probably put the Mississippi State game in the blue. So I think this projection is maybe overrating Ole Miss a little bit, or not overrating them, but let's say underrating their opponents. Let's put it that way, because again, they are in tier 2 with this formula. But that Kentucky game could be a little bit tricky. I'd probably put it in the purple. Arkansas, there's been a lot of close games there. I might even put that one in the purple. So again, like I said, I think just with our tier rankings and where these teams fall, that doesn't always give the full story because it doesn't account for rivalry games and things like that. But with our formula, again, those games are in the blue. And then we go to the games in the purple. Actually, no, we don't have any in the purple. We have one in the yellow. So Georgia on the road. Now, Georgia is in tier 1, and that game is on the road. So that's why that one's in the yellow. If they had Georgia at home, it would be a 50-50 game because, like I said, Ole Miss is a tier 2 team. So that one's going to be tough. I know Ole Miss, they did what they did last year, but that does not play into this. It's simply based off of these tier rankings. So that one is in the yellow. Again, a 30 to 39% chance, somewhere in that range. I do think Ole Miss is probably an 8 or 9 point underdog in that game. And that leaves us with LSU, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Florida. So you've got LSU, another tier 2 team. South Carolina, another tier 2 team, and same thing with Florida. So 3 teams that are in the same tier. Good news for Ole Miss is you've got all of those games at home. So if you can take care of business at home and win those games, that's probably going to be what gets Ole Miss in the college football playoff. I'll just go ahead and say it right now. If Ole Miss makes the college football playoff, they are going to need to beat LSU, South Carolina, and Florida, or at least go 2-1 in those games. Those are going to be huge games. And then you've got Oklahoma. That's a tier 3 team, but it's on the road. Also, it's right after playing Georgia, and right before playing South Carolina. So that's going to be a tough one. I wouldn't count that as a win. So yeah, it does come in the 50-50 range again. It's a tier below Ole Miss, yes, but it's on the road. That's why that's there. So you've got 4 games that could really go either way. You're going to be a slight underdog against Georgia, and then should be a pretty good favorite against Kentucky and Arkansas, and 5 games that Ole Miss should win. So what projection do we get for the Rebels? Well, we can average everything out. You get a 9-3 projection. So like I said, I think this is underrating the opponents a little bit. I have no problems with a 9-3 projection, but just based off of how this turns out for most teams, because it's a very conservative approach, and the fact that you've got 4 toss-up games, and then you've got a Georgia game where you're going to be an underdog, and then maybe they slip up somewhere else. You know, I could even see 8-4 being the projection. Now, I think they could do better than even 9-3. I think they could do 10-2, and maybe that's what I'll predict. But just, again, based off of how we do this with all these teams, I think this formula does come out pretty well for Ole Miss because of some of these opponents. So we're talking about Kentucky, Arkansas, and Mississippi State, maybe even Tulane. Again, games they should win, but for other teams that maybe are in similar situations, if the tiers are just a little bit different, you know, the formula is going to give them a loss in one of those games, but for Ole Miss, it's going to give them wins in those games. So 9-3 is the projection for Ole Miss, right back where they were last year. Probably not going to get them in the college football playoff, but still, this would be a very solid season for the Rebels.